Mental health is just as important for us children as it is for adults. That is why we spoke to the experts from the Children's Institute at UCT about their contribution to the 2022 Child Gauge on Child and Adolescent Mental Health. Stay tuned for educational entertainment right now on RX Radio.
What roles do you think that schools should play in helping children with their mental health?
I think that's a very important question because I think schools really does play a central part and they have a very big responsibility in helping children with their mental health. So on average, a child in South Africa spends around 1,200 hours per year in school. So that's a lot of waking hours. This really places schools in a very unique position to reach children and teenagers that can benefit from school-based mental health support. So also a lot of children and teenagers in South Africa grows up in households that lives in adversity or in impoverished conditions, which mean they will not necessarily be able to access mental health services on their own. So therefore, schools can act as a gateway of providing them with mental health services that they would not necessarily reach outside of the school area. And also, when you provide mental health services at school, all children will have access to these services, meaning that many more children and teenagers in South Africa will be able to benefit from the help that is being offered to them. And the second reason I think schools does play such an important part in the mental health of children and teenagers is that schools are generally very well connected with their communities. So this means that they know what services are available to children in their communities and where children can find additional help for those students that might benefit from extra mental health support. Lastly, I also think it's very important to incorporate mental health programs within schools because there's a lot of evidence and a lot of research that has gone into this that shows that school-based programs are very effective in promoting the mental health of children. School-based programs can also help children to achieve better in schools and also to reduce risky behaviors that might be harmful to them, such as substance abuse or bullying. And it can also improve the mental well-being of children. So, for instance, improve their self-esteem.
What support should schools have with early childhood development and young children's mental health?
So I think schools should really invest in early childhood development and mental health of children. I feel that all schools should make it one of their top priorities to work towards improving the development of mental health in children. They should be well knowledgeable about mental health problems in children and how to detect signs that a child is struggling with mental health problems and how they can respond to these. So an example of how schools can invest is having teachers trained on children's mental health so that teachers can be well equipped to identify a child that might be struggling and that the teacher can be aware of how they can best help them. Another way that schools can improve the mental health of children is having programs available for students that help them improve their mental health. So my last example of how schools can support is having services available for these children that might be struggling more than their peers with mental health conditions. So these services can include a school counselor where they have someone that can help them on a more individual level or even link them to services within their communities where they can receive support.
How can primary and secondary schools protect children's mental health?
So the first way I think in which primary and secondary schools can protect the mental health of children and teenagers is through building a positive school climate. So there's a few components that works together towards improving a school climate. And the first of these is that schools can work towards improving the relationships within the schools. So this includes the relationships that students have with one another, but also the relationship that students have with teachers. So you can just imagine if you are going to school and you have positive relationship with other children in your class or your friends and your teachers, you will generally feel more protected and supported. Another component of a positive school climate is also one that respects students' values and diversity. So to really acknowledge that there is different children going to the school and to respect each child on an individual level. Another way to improve the school climate is also to reduce their exposure to risks. So this includes risks that might be physically harmful to children, so providing them with a safe space where they can learn, but also to reduce risk factors that might be harmful to children's mental health, for example, exposure to bullying at schools. Another way that schools can protect children's mental health is through incorporating very important life skills programs into the school curriculum. So just an example of this might be life orientation classes, where children are taught how to control negative emotions or how to incorporate healthy coping skills within their life. Also, schools can offer more targeted support. So this is for those students that I mentioned earlier that might show signs or symptoms of a mental health condition. For instance, if there's a student that the teacher really knows or struggling with a mental health or behavior, that the teacher knows how to help them and where they can find extra support for this child. Lastly, schools can also implement support programs for teachers. I think teachers go through a lot of stress and they are very often overlooked, but they do play a very important role in supporting children and supporting their mental health. So an example of the way schools can support teachers is to have mental health workshops or programs available for teachers to attend, where they can provide an opportunity for the teacher to focus on their own mental health and well-being and know how to take care of their own mental health.
Thank you for listening to this interview on 2022 Child Gauge on Child and Adolescent Mental Health. We hope that you learned something new about the importance of taking care of our mental health. This was put together by Oryx Radio, a radio station by and for children at Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital. If you'd like to find out more about the Child Gauge interviews, visit our YouTube channel or head over to the Children's Institute website at www.ci.uct.ac.za. That's www.ci.uct.ac.za. Oryx Radio by and for children.